in the 80s, you have to have a man waiting outside for you next to a Porsche, or your life isn't perfect. Hi, welcome to Cover Your Eyes. You want to talk about Flashdance from 1983?
Why, I certainly do, Sarah.
Yay! It actually was released on April 15th, 1983, and I just looked it up because I was curious as to how it related to Footloose. So I felt like there were a lot of similarities, and I was like, which one was
Right.
first? And this one was first. I love this movie, like, obviously, as a child of the 80s, I think you had to love this movie, especially as a little girl. I mean, I feel like I remember always loving it, but I always had,
hmm
like, a dark feeling about it, though, too.
hmm
And then watching it again, like, now I see why. There are, like, bright moments, but a lot of it's just kind of dark and, like, heavy for a 5-year-old.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so you saw this movie when you were 5?
I mean, it came out in April of 83, and so I probably saw it within, like, a year from then. I may have seen it in the theater based on, like, my parents' track record of taking me to the theater for movies. And otherwise, I mean, I'm sure we saw it on, like, VHS or whatever as soon as it was available. Like, I know I saw it when I was very little because I remember doing all the dances and loving all the songs and all of that.
Were you a
So
maniac?
I was a total maniac on the kitchen floor.
Were you dancing like you've never danced before?
I was. I was like, Mom, get me leg warmers, stat. I need to dance my ass off. Yes, definitely.
But do you feel like one of the main things you got out of it was just like the awesome dancing?
I think that's the
Or
main thing that I like really took away from it as a child because, well, that's what I would gravitate to, obviously, because I
Mhm.
loved the music and I always loved dancing. And so that's what would have drawn me to it. And then I just remember it's like dancing, but then also like a seedy element and just like I said, kind of like a gross feeling throughout. And that's what I really felt like. I just get like a feeling in my gut about it, like thinking about it as a kid.
Mhm.
And the scene that like always bothered me the most, I guess that we're just going to talk about it and just like jump right into it.
Yeah.
That's what we
Yeah.
usually do, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. It's a
Like
new
this,
thing every time.
I know.
I feel like the way that we talk about stuff is really just like dependent on the movie somehow. Because it
Yeah.
seems like things get sometimes it's organized and then like or like we go more in an order and sometimes we don't. So
hmm
I don't know, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have like a set format.
Mm-mm.
It flows.
It's a conversation.
Yeah. So the part that like I remember most feeling gross about as a child was when her friend. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Alex is the main character. She's the steel town girl on a Saturday night who also works in the steel mill or at a construction site as a welder. And then by night, she's a dancer, but not a stripper, not an exotic dancer, really, just a dancer in teddies, like 80s teddies
hmm
and high heels.
It's like an art house strip bar.
It is. It's like owned by this grizzly old or Pittsburgh dude, and it seems like a seedy bar, but then they have these, yeah, like art house type
Yeah. Like
interpretive dances.
all of the women that are dancing there are doing like these very creative modern dance stage shows basically. And yeah, they
Yeah,
get down to a teddy, but a lot of it did not feel that sexual to me at
I
all,
know. I
you
wrote
know?
that down. I agree.
It was just like, so I really don't even know if you could call it a strip bar. It was really
No,
just like, I don't know how to describe it, but
I don't really either because I was thinking, like, where would this exist in real life? Was there something like this? It's basically just like all these Pittsburgh dudes coming to like a seedy looking bar to eat burgers and drink beer. And then in the meantime, on the main stage, there are these
Mhm.
women like in elaborate costumes doing artistic type dance. I'm like, what? I
Yeah.
love this place. I would totally go there,
Me
but is
too.
there anything like it in real life?
Well, and then like the owner is really nice. He's like this
Yeah.
really sweet guy. And then
Hmm.
the Richie, the cook, is like a really cheesy comedian.
Oh yeah.
But he's really sweet.
Hmm.
And it's like generally the people there are very, very nice, and it has like this weird family feel
It
to
does.
it that
Yeah.
is one of the things about the movie that's very sweet.
It's like a
Um,
cast of about what, 5 women who are all dancers and they get ready together, and from the backstage it looks like it would be like a strip club or something, but
mhm.
then it's not.
Maybe Cabaret,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
the name for it. Cabaret.
It's like cabaret, but like 80s
Cabaret.
cabaret.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's a post Fosse cabaret kind of world.
It's very cool. It is a family vibe. But like next door is a place called
Leaving
Zanzibar or something.
Zanzibar.
Yeah. And that's like all nude, all girls, all the time, $5.
Hey,
And I
baby.
just, yeah, felt like, okay, most of the guys would probably just be next door at Zanzibar. But I like that they're showing all the guys interested in this dance. It's kind of
Hmm.
nice.
Like, I think it's important to show a more idealized version of the world.
Hmm.
Like, nobody complains when people, a more horrible dystopian version of the world. But whenever we show an idealized version of the world of like, hey, maybe we could treat people more like this instead, like we had hearts,
Hmm.
that people get kind of bent out of shape, like, oh, that'd never be a thing. Like, this isn't realistic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying. I want it to be realistic. I guess I'm jaded.
Yeah, but see, here's my thing is that I actually know quite a few guys who are super grossed out by strip clubs,
Yeah.
but that would probably think that that was really cool. Like to
Hmm.
go to a place and see people dance.
Yeah.
That was like doing something creative, and sure it's like it's kind of hot or whatever, but dancing's
Hmm.
fucking sexy as hell.
Right.
So I mean that's just the nature of dance.
Maybe we should
If
find out if there is something like that somewhere.
Yeah, if anybody has hung out at a place like Hobby's Bar or has worked at a place like Hobby's Bar, please let us know.
If it
Right
still
to us.
exists, we're going to go.
Yes,
Show field trip.
definitely.
Yeah. So I was saying that's where, and then her friend, so Alex is the main girl,
Hmm.
and her friend is named Jeannie, and she is a waitress at this place, Mobby's Bar, where they do their
Hmm.
dancing and everything. But then later, things happen, and Jeannie ends up working at the Zanzibar, the strip club next door, because she's dating the owner.
Leaving
What?
his name,
Hmm.
the actor who plays Johnny C, the
Yeah.
Zanzibar owner, his name is Lee. In real life, his name's Lee, Lee Ving, Ving.
No way.
Leaving. It's not his real name. He's the
Okay.
lead singer of the punk band Fear,
Okay.
and he was also Mr. Body in Clue.
Oh, okay. I knew I recognized him from
Yeah,
something.
I love that guy.
Oh, nice. Cool.
He does
Okay.
such a great job in this role.
Yeah, he's like a dirtbag, but
Oh
like
my god.
almost tolerable dirtbag at
Mm,
times.
the
I
worst
don't know.
kind. The most dangerous kind of dirtbag of all.
True. So he lures Jeannie into working at his club, and then that's the part of the movie that I like remember the most of being like disturbed by as a
Oh.
child and feeling like a gross feeling in my gut. Um, when Alex finds out that she's working there and she goes to rescue her, and she's just sitting in this like pit, basically. It's almost like a kiddie pool, and
Hmm.
she's on her back in only like a G string with her knees bent and just like waving her legs around in the air to all the
You
guys.
know, what she's doing the Pilates mermaid position.
Yeah, so she's mermaiding in her
She's
underwear
mermaid.
with her crotch in all these people's faces.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I just felt like so disturbed by that as a child, and I still do. And then I just
Hmm.
remember when Alex came to rescue her and covered her with her coat and was like, "What are you doing? This isn't
Hmm.
you." And then her friend started crying because she was like embarrassed that Alex had seen her that way.
Mm-hmm.
Then Alex comforted her and like you felt like it was going to be okay and she was going to find something else to
Mm-hmm.
do. But that was the like darkest, most disturbing part that I remember as a kid, just being like, oh, she's just laying there in this pool, like naked on her back with these guys just all leering around her. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt
Well,
worse than like the dancing because at least when you're up on the
yeah.
stage and you're dancing, you're more like in control and you're expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And she was just laying there on her back being gawked at.
Well, and it seemed like she was still trying to hide.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the other women, it didn't seem like, oh, that's bad. They shouldn't be stripping. It was just like, oh, there's some women doing some stripping. It's the 80s. Then you get to Jeannie, and you can like clearly see that she's not okay with it. I mean, she's barely moving her body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess up front, I mean, since we're just talking about being in the strip club. So you go into the strip club and you see all of these women and they're oiled up. The way the camera angles are coming down over the women's bodies, like you never see anybody's face. It's just tits and ass.
Yeah.
And that is like such a great demonstration of how you're indulging the viewer. You're asking the viewer to sexualize these women. But then at the same time, you're following that with this is bad and you shouldn't do it. Every scene of a woman in this movie is this long, lingering camera go panning down the body in the way that men check you out when they don't have any filter and they don't care that you know that they're going to go home later and jerk off to your like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Uh-huh.
to your image or whatever they put in their fucking head. And you can see that on them. And it's the same with that camera. And so all of the stuff in this movie that could be considered like girl power-y is like negated for me
Mm-hmm.
by the fact that sexual harassment's okay, incest is okay, and
Incest.
yeah, let's get to Jeannie in a second. God, sorry, this movie pisses me off really.
Oh wow. I wasn't expecting this. I feel like when you first were texting me when you first started, it was all like good vibes.
Yeah.
I
No,
won't say
it
good
is.
vibes only because I know you hate
Yeah.
that.
Well, it is good vibes, but it's just like, okay, so when I was a kid, I saw this movie, but I was an All That Jazz diehard, and I still am. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, All That Jazz. So I got really excited because I remembered All That Jazz, and I was like, "Oh my God, Isaac! You know, you got to watch this movie." It's like one of my all-time favorite movies when I was a kid,
Nice.
and so I turn it on and we start watching it. It's like this really hot dance scene, and it's very sexual. And Isaac's like, this is your favorite movie as a kid? And I was like, no, this movie's amazing. And he was like, this is weird. Mom, let you watch this? And I was like, yeah, she loves this movie too. I don't know what it was, but something about this movie did not interest me when I was little.
Yeah.
And I almost think it had something to do with like, there's a grittiness to this movie that I didn't find visually appealing
Mm-hmm.
enough as a kid to like, for it to hold my attention. So I saw this movie with Nana.
Okay.
And again, she kind of just kept pointing out all of the like, oh, we're supposed to think this lady's hot, like all of the stuff where it was like, I think the movie made her uncomfortable because it was so sexualizing of this girl who
Mm-hmm.
is a teenager still.
Legitimately.
Like, technically, she's a teenager. And,
Yeah. In real life and in the movie. Like, I
oh,
don't know that I actually enjoyed the movie. It was just the dancing. But actually, some of the dance, like I remember one of the dances that Alex did where she was dressed like an 80s punk geisha look.
Mm-hmm. 80s punk
And
geisha.
yeah. And then she was sitting in front of the television and it blew back on her, kind of like that old Memorex ad or something,
Mm.
I don't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got up and she was wearing like an 80s power suit. But she was dancing in this strobe light and it was like all black and white. And it felt like creepy. And I remember as a kid
It
thinking it
was,
was like a creepy, scary dance too.
there's a lot of things about that dance. So I was like, okay, well, obviously that would not fly today.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and there was this weird, like, remember how everybody, like all the adults were like scared that the Japanese were going to buy everything in the 80s and take over the US?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It was like the shadow of a nuclear holocaust, like coming back to spark fear in America in
Mm-hmm.
the 80s. So I thought about that. But then I also thought about, so it was kind of like, that was a scary dance.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, Japan is scary.
Well,
On top of that, I think that they did it because that they put that face on her because it masked the fact that that is not the actress. And you can clearly see that it is not Jennifer Beals.
they don't even try to hide it at all,
Mm-mm.
like at any point in the film. And especially like even the main dance, like culmination scene at the end, it's so obvious that it's not her. It's three different
It's
people.
it's three different people. One of them is a guy. Yeah.
Okay, I thought the person riding the bike at the beginning was a guy, and there were a
Uh,
couple
the
other times I thought there was a guy too.
the break dancing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
they had three different people to make up this dance scene at the end.
Jeez.
And I actually have the names of the dancers because I
They
looked up the
deserve credit.
dancers because they deserve credit. And they're not anywhere in the movie
No.
with credit. So let's see. There is this woman, Jahan, who did the technical dancing, a woman, Shapiro, who did all the gymnastic stunts, and
Mm.
B-Boy Crazy Legs,
Oh
who
my
did
God.
the breakdancing moves.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
B-boy crazy.
That's name ever.
Do you think that he like what was that like for him to be like
Yeah.
to breakdance in a movie, but then to like tell his friends like I'm playing, Jennifer Beals. What was that like for him?
I know.
It must have been like mixed emotions, right?
I would imagine. I mean, you're not getting credit for what I mean, but on the other hand, maybe you're just like, hey, I just got paid to dance.
Yeah. In a leotard and leg warmers. Crazy legs.
Yeah, you have to crazy legs.
We
Pull
need to
that
look him
off.
up and interview.
Yeah, we need to
Wow.
interview him
I
because
just love the fact that they don't even try to like hide it. It's like a terrible wig. They don't hide her face well at all. It's just like, okay, this isn't her. She could never do this. Here's this
yeah,
other person pretend it's
yeah.
her.
To me, this movie is here's a fuckable 18-year-old. It's like, okay, so we open up on this scene of welding that it's like it makes her job look like it's like if you were at a steel mill that and it turned into a porn. Like
Okay.
that's how we set up the movie. Like that's how it starts. And then she's dancing and she's doing Alex is doing her famous scene where she's dancing with the chair and she
Yeah.
pulls that string and all this water comes down. And then she continues to dance in heels
On
on
a
a
wet
wet
floor.
floor
I know.
in a terrible wig.
Yeah.
So the wig immediately pulled me out of the dance. So
Hmm.
I almost like couldn't even focus because I was like on it because I was like, I know this isn't her, which isn't a big deal, but it just really took me out of it, out of the fantasy of it. And then this guy, Nick, who is basically Archangel Michael or a Greek god. I feel like if I was a casting director, those are the two roles I would want him cast in. And so he's 18 years older than her in real life. I looked it up. And he's sitting there and with this guy and he's like, whoa, he's really going for her. And then his friend rattles off this number and he's like, what? And then he's like, it's her social security code, asshole. She works for you. So now we find out that Nick is Alex's boss at the welding place. Great. We have a man who's 18 years older than an 18-year-old and who is also her boss. The women are talking in the dressing room. What do you think? What are the women talking about?
Boys. Only boys.
Only boys.
Is he going to call me? I hope he calls me.
He'll probably call you, though. Okay, this movie was like made by men. It's made by men for men. And stanza. Whenever you have like a scene where there's a bunch of women and they're all just like, all they talk about is men who have attachment issues. This is their fantasy, that women just sit around and talk about them all the time. And like, oh, does he love me enough? Is he going to call? Oh, I'm just a little girl and I'm not good enough for my big man. It's like, that's what these guys want. I feel like this movie is such a great example of the problem, the intersection between filmmaking and cocaine use.
I don't know.
Is peak. It's like peak intersection. This movie like embodies everything that I dislike about 80s filmmaking, quite frankly.
Oh man.
Yeah. That you had more memories about this movie of like it being very positive. And I don't really know why I didn't, but like I just grew up feeling like I didn't like that movie and kind of not really being sure why. And then when I was watching it this time, I was like, oh, it's probably all of this like really bleak manipulation by men. Jeannie and Alex are eating dinner at Jeannie's parents' house.
Oh God.
Now, her dad calls them, he's like, you girls eat like pigs. And then Jeannie very seriously says, I could eat anything yesterday. Like, I'm being a good girl, Daddy. I'm on my diet, okay? So then he says some things that are kind of degrading. Nobody says anything about it. I mean, there's a clear, like, discomfort in the air, but nobody confronts him about it. So then later, we are at the ice skating show. Alex and Nick are there because Nick basically jokingly told her that she was fired. And so now they could go on a date.
Yeah, because she was saying like, I don't think it's a good idea to date my boss. And he's like, okay, you win. You're fired.
Which is a joke. I mean, he was joking.
He was joking.
However, it's weird, man. Jeannie's dad is watching Jeannie on the ice. And he is making like these gross, like kissy lust faces. And then didn't you like go back and watch the scene? Because I swear the implication is that there is a major sexual abuse situation going on with Jeannie and her dad. So he's like making these like gross kissy faces.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna have to watch this again. I thought it was just like nerve faces,
I didn't see it that way at all. I thought he was being lusty.
Oh my God.
Then he turns to his wife and says, that's what you used to look like 20 years ago.
Okay, I heard it like differently. I think it depends on what mood I'm in sometimes. Because I just heard him being like, there's you 20 years ago, not as like vicious or gross as that.
Mm-hmm. Jeannie messes up and she falls and she just she goes from doing a great job ice skating to doing a horrible job. Then her dad goes backstage and then all of a sudden he's nice
Yeah.
to her.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's a super inconsistent behavior. He's super manipulative and controlling to the extent that he's monitoring how much his daughter is eating so that she doesn't get fat like her
Hmm.
mom.
Uh,
And then now we're seeing him be nice. So we can all backpedal and go, oh, well, he's not really a bad guy after all.
I
You know?
totally fell for it. I think I'm in a sentimental mood today or
Mm.
something. Because I like felt touched by that
Well,
scene.
here's the thing. That's the problem because that scene is touching if you just take that scene in and of itself and you disregard everything else that that guy did.
And I feel like that so many dads in movies, definitely 80s movies, but other movies too, where just like, I'm the grizzled dad who just works all the time and I'm working class and this is my life and I work and I come home and I eat dinner and then I sit in a chair and watch TV and smoke a cigar and watch sports and I don't show emotions and that's okay. That's just how I am. And like that's how he was. And then when he was watching her in her competition because she's been working at it for 2 years, then he actually was like nervous for her and he wanted her to do well, but he couldn't show it. His dad never showed him love and he probably just beat him. And so he's just like, I can't show emotion and I can't show her that I really am proud of her. I just have to be
Mm-hmm.
gruff and like contrary, like, oh, you're probably gonna lose. You're
Mm-hmm.
probably gonna fall. Cause he said before the thing, like, you might fall or you're gonna fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's like she did fall, and then he felt bad, and then he did like let his emotions show. I feel like that's a setup that we see in so many movies is like
Uh-huh.
I'm gruff on the outside, but really I'm sweet, and then you
Yeah.
see it at a certain point.
He was actually really nice to her.
Hmm.
And that's all you remember. But you forget the part where he set her up to fall by telling
Yeah.
her that she was going to fall. And then now he breaks her down and then he gets to build her back up. It's like
Oh.
classic abuse behavior. There's so much like subtle abuse behavior in this movie. And I'm like, I can't tell if the people that made the movie are just like abusive and they didn't notice that they were like showing their hand,
Mm.
or if they were showing these people having like abused lives.
Yeah. I feel like that may be part of it is it's just like the whole movie is gritty and dingy looking and there's a dark undertone. It's in like Pittsburgh, a steel town that would soon be like, you know, obsolete as a steel town and
Right.
in poverty. Um, and we see Jeannie's family, doesn't seem to have much money and they're like investing their money in her skating and then it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were just supposed to see that they do have hard lives.
Yeah.
And it's probably like continuing some patterns of abuse from being like lower to middle class,
Right.
working town, steel town people, which is what we grew up in. So we can speak
Yeah,
on it.
totally.
So we can speak on this. And then, so we see Jeannie's home life is not great. And she comes out in just like a plain black leotard. And like the woman before her was in like this beautiful blue, like fancy
Mm-hmm.
looking outfit. And then Jeannie just comes out in her like Kmart leotard. So you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing like, this is Jeannie's life. Like, this is her one chance to make it. And she's
Yeah.
invested in this and then she fails. Alex, we don't know anything about her family. So we just assume that like they're dead or they're
An
deadbeats and that she's been
orphan.
basically raising herself.
And maybe that her friend Hannah,
Yeah,
the
the
older
one who got her
ballerina,
into dancing. Hmm.
My story for Alex is that her mom is a single mom, but has some mental health issues, so she
Mm-hmm.
couldn't provide a stable home life for her,
Mm-hmm.
and that Hannah was a neighbor,
Oh,
and Hannah took her under her wing and taught her to dance.
that sounds nice. Yeah, I'll buy that. And then Alex's mom just like got into drugs and fell off the map or skipped town with some abusive boyfriend and left Alex behind to fend for
Mm-hmm.
herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then she couldn't afford college, so she went to welding school, or she just took it in vocational classes in high school, so she became a
Mm-hmm.
welder. And then she saved all of her money from welding so that she could support herself while she was in dance school, which was really nice. So I feel like, I don't know, I really feel like I didn't like the movie as a kid. I just like the dancing. Now I like see why watching it as an adult. And but I feel like there were some like positive moments from like, okay, I can see how Alex could be like a good role model because she's like a single girl doing it for herself with
Mm-hmm.
a cool apartment and a dog, a
Mm-hmm.
cool wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
She lives by her own rules. She makes her own money. She's saving up for pursuing her dreams to be a dancer. And I think that she is like a good role model in that regard. She doesn't just fall for what her boss says at first. She's not just like, oh my God, you're my boss and you're rich and I'm poor
Mm-hmm.
and working my ass off, so I'm just going to go out with you. She didn't do that. Like, she put him off until she decided that she actually did want to go out with him. I don't remember what made her actually decide that, but.
But
And then
did
she
she?
kind of like, didn't she?
That's really the question is with sexual harassment generally is how much of a decision can you really make if
Mm-hmm.
you feel like your job's at risk?
Right.
Even if the guy's hot. Like, okay, let's look at Nick's behavior. Let's say Nick doesn't look like Archangel Michael or a Greek god, okay?
Can I just say, I actually don't find him attractive, and his teeth are gross, but that's 80s. Doesn't he play like a bad guy or something in a different movie, like a devil or a vampire or
I mean, he
something?
looks like he could be evil.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But tell me, yeah, if he looked unattractive,
Then he says that he will fire her because she.
joking.
I know, but here's the thing. Would it sound like a joke if he wasn't attractive?
No, it wouldn't. Then it would be like, I'm gross, and I know you won't go out with me any other way. So,
Uh-huh.
okay, yes, he played in The Curse of Dracula.
Oh, okay. That sounds
I knew I had seen him as a
quite
vampire.
well.
That's probably another reason why this movie freaked me out because I had
Oh.
seen him as a vampire before.
Oh, he would be a perfect vampire.
That's
Yeah.
probably another like dark feeling to this movie.
Ah. Well, see, okay, so you don't think this guy's attractive and he's kind of creepy to you.
I mean, I actually found him like more attractive as it went on, and I thought he was nice and like
Mm-hmm.
funny. And he's okay. I can see how he could be considered attractive.
I know I just argued that he's a total creep and he's sexually harassing her.
Hmm.
But when I was watching this movie, I mean, I feel like if you really liked somebody, sometimes you just know or whatever,
Yeah.
okay, sure. But he gets her the audition to dance for the school. She freaks out because she finds out that he got her the audition and she freaks out. And it's not the first time that she freaks out and like causes property damage. Like she
Right.
causes a lot of property damage in this movie. And this is another thing where I'm like, okay, if this was a not hot person
Uh-huh.
or a guy, this would not be acceptable
Right.
behavior at all. She like broke his window. She didn't even ask him
Because
any
she saw him like out
questions.
with another woman. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like what? They were on like one date?
Yeah.
Like I've never gone on one date and been like, "Oh, we're exclusive." Like I don't think that's a thing.
I know, but you know what I said to myself a few times when she was pulling this shit on him?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's what you get for dating an 18-year-old.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Well, and I think that it was like, ooh, she's like hot and fiery and passionate, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and a lot of people think that when they get into a relationship with somebody who has anger management issues, at a certain point in the relationship, it's like the hot passion that was like put into the lovemaking becomes just like, oh shit, you punched a hole in the wall again. And you might be punching me next time. I can't tell.
Right.
You
And she
know?
does strike him like many times. She
Yeah.
hits him, which is like, okay, when you're like hot and tiny, I guess you can get away with that, but it's not acceptable. But again, it's like she's 18.
Sure.
Not that you should be doing that when you're 18. Like you're still an adult and you shouldn't be like
Yeah.
hitting people. But he can't expect like the emotional maturity out of her that he did from his ex-wife or other relationships with grown women. Like she's a teenager, she's a baby. This relationship, I don't know about it. It's really messed up. Like I didn't realize how old she was. I was thinking in my head like, oh, she's probably supposed to be like 22 or 23. But like at the beginning of the film when she raised her welder's mask, I was like, oh, she's a literal baby. Like she looks so young. Like I didn't remember her looking that young because I was like 5, so everyone looked older to me. But I was like, geez, she is a kid, really. And then so yeah, when they started this relationship, I was like, he's probably in his 20s or 30s. And
He's
then so
36.
yeah. Because the
Which,
one when they're like at the ice skating competition, the comedian kind of makes a crack at about his age because the kid had got punched in the face and he had a broken nose and he was like, yeah, that was a big thing back in the 50s, wasn't it? Like saying that to him. And then so Nick was like, the 60s. So he was like, I see what you're doing. You're saying that I'm old. And I am old, but not as old as you think. And that's right. He should have been giving him crap because it's gross.
Yeah. Richie's really the heart of the movie. Which is weird because when you first see Richie the cook, who's like also a quote unquote comedian, he is like, oh my God, this guy's gonna be insufferable.
Yeah.
But he actually turns out to be super sweet. And one of the things I liked about the movie was that Richie and Alex had a genuine platonic relationship. You know, I feel like this movie tried to be progressive for women, but it just didn't pan out because the people who made it selected Jennifer Beals by showing a group of Teamsters who were working on, you know, in the studio or whatever, a picture of Jennifer Beals and Demi Moore and a model who I don't know her name, and said, which one of these would you fuck? And they took a vote.
True story.
Yes, it's a true story. And it was Jennifer Beals. Okay. So that's the attitude of the dudes making this movie. And to me, it comes through. So I don't care how progressive or how feminist your protagonist is because she's a welder, because she has a man's job. I don't care about any of that shit. The fact is, you have completely taken an 18-year-old girl and made everything about every camera angle that is placed on her about her tits and ass. And she's such a kid that whenever Nick and Alex are going out to eat and she's eating lobster, that whenever the director told her to be sexy, she said, I don't know how to be sexy.
I knew how to be sexy by the time I was 18.
Well, I did too, but you know what I'm saying. I wouldn't have had a problem with it, but
yeah,
I'm just saying this is the mentality of the person that is doing the job.
I think that she did a good job because it was sexy when she was eating the lobster.
Well, the actor that played Nick, he told her, just act like you're doing things that would be very offensive to other people. So that's how they got that scene.
Oh.
So then she just started acting like, how could I shock everyone? And then that's how they got the scene.
Wow.
I know this stuff because I listened to an episode of a Hollywood crime scene that was
Okay.
about Don Simpson, who's one of the producers of this
Mm-hmm.
movie. And he had a wild drug and cocaine fueled life. He died in like 1994 or something.
Mm-hmm.
He had like, I don't know, like 21 drugs in his system or something when he died. It
Wow,
was
I
like,
didn't even know there were that many. You know what was weird is that I was thinking there is a lot of T and A in this movie,
mm-hmm.
but there's really not a lot of T, mainly
No.
A,
Mm-hmm.
because it's dancers and dancers have amazing asses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mainly what I was thinking a lot of the time is like, that is such an amazing ass. I need to work out. I
Mm-hmm.
wish that I had muscles like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when they were showing like the scene that everyone knows where she's like in the leg warmers and doing the like like super fast, just like trotting in place thing
Mm-hmm.
and like rubbing her thighs. But I feel like that could be super sexual, but to me, it didn't feel like it. I wasn't getting like a super sexualized vibe from it, even though it was focusing on her ass. But they had to do that because it was never her, so they couldn't show her face. But that's okay because it played into the role because they just wanted to show tits and ass, so it didn't matter. And the only time they showed her face is when she was just like flinging sweat everywhere and like flicking her head around wildly. That's all she did.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me wonder, like, how bad of a dancer is Jennifer Beals? They couldn't show her doing like anything.
Well, you can
Moving
kind
her
of
head.
tell because
What?
when you do see her, she seems very stiff.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, some people just aren't dancers.
right.
I mean, whatever, you know, but like,
Yeah.
but I
If you're
guess
gonna be the star of a dance maybe
the,
try something. I'm sure
because,
there's plenty of attractive dancer slash actresses out there that they could have chosen to do everything.
but the Teamsters thought that she was the most fuckable, which
Yeah.
just confirms what everyone's always known about Hollywood, which is that being the hot chick is the most important part of the movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Hollywood. That's just how it is. But I think it's changing, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but like when they were showing that, I almost felt like it wasn't sexualizing it. It was more focusing on like thinking of it as the dancers' tools and their source
Mm-hmm.
of power. That's how I felt because they were
Mm-hmm.
showing like these powerful thighs and butt
Mm-hmm.
doing these like beautiful dance moves. And so
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't feel like it was as sexualized as it could be, which was surprising to me.
Yeah. They do make the dancing scenes about the dance, and it's super powerful. Like when she pulls that water down,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God. I got like kind of weepy. I guess like I wasn't actually talking about the dance scenes.
Mm.
But I mean like just the normal scenes where they're just like being people interacting.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like I don't know, there's something about this movie that just feels like very predatory and creepy to me, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's disorienting because a lot of the messages in the movie are I'm a strong, independent woman. But then there's all these other, like I was talking about with Jeannie's dad, or
Yeah.
like how leaving the Johnny C, who has the strip club next door. So there's a scene where he's over because he likes to hang out at Hobby's bar. He is like being really offensive to Jeannie. And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm not really a bad guy. Like, this is an act. Okay, ladies, if anybody ever says that to you, just like walk away. If you really want to be nice about it, be like, oh my God, I have to pee really bad. And then just leave. Okay, it works every time. And I mean, really. And
Uh-huh.
then, oh my God, the biggest red flag. He hands her $100 bill
Mm-hmm.
and is like, see how nice I am? I really am a good guy. I'm going to give you a big tip. I'm going to see if I can cross this boundary. I'm going to treat you really poorly. And then whenever you get upset about it, I'm going to give you money. And then you're going to think I'm a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm feeling threatened or whatever it is that motivates me to be an asshole, it's really hurtful. I'm going to push that line a little bit further. And yeah, your gifts are going to get bigger, but you're still going to end up stripping over at my club.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still going to end up being your pimp.
About that scene, I felt
Yeah.
like he was just like grooming her to start working for him in that scene. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
showing her that he can give her all this money. I just felt like I could see like that's what he was doing, like manipulating her, like you said, and priming her to beat her down to get her over there to the
Mm-hmm.
Zanzibar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, like in the beginning of the movie, I think they're at a laundromat or something, Jeannie
Mm-hmm.
and Alex, and then you see John you see outside of the Zanzibar like promoting his club, and then Jeannie and Alex walk by and he's like, "Hey girls," like trying to get them to work for him,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not interested. He's like, "Look at my car. It's $20,000 and it's got push buttons and
Mm-hmm.
leather seats. Look at this. Come work for me. You can have all this." And they're not interested, and then they like insult him. Oh, and Alex says, "Did you know the smallest penis ever measured is 1.1 inches?" And then he says, "You guys really are a couple of cunts," or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he calls them cunts. I
But
was
he
like,
says
"Oh my
it,
God."
he's like really jokey about it
Hmm.
when he says it. And I feel like they didn't really, this is like old hat. Like this is their
Oh
like
yeah.
routine that they do.
Hmm.
And it's kind of jokey. I have a hard time not liking leaving.
Hmm.
So when he's these like despicable, he does it so well. And it's like,
He
I don't
does.
know. I feel like he's not really like that. So it's like, he's kind of weirdly charming to me.
Uh-huh.
He's got that twinkle in his eye. So they cast him really well because those guys that are abusive like that often like, oh, he's just being silly or whatever,
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I did feel like with that relationship and like that whole setup there, I that made me on the side of the people making this movie are really trying to show this abusive cycle. People have good intentions and they operate from where they know, you know. So the
Yeah.
people making this movie, I'm sure they thought they were being, these men, like I bet they thought they were being really progressive. This 18-year-old girl that's telling some guy, like, hey, I bet your penis is only an inch long. And like, she's sassy and she's a welder. And
Yeah.
like, hey, ladies, like, this is feminism in the 80s. You're supposed to work like a man and fuck like a woman,
Hmm.
and you got to be hot all the time. And you got to know how to cook and you know how to be a lady and you also got to know how to be a man,
Hmm.
and like it was all like, anything you can do, I can do better. Like that was the kind of like, let's adopt like this masculinity.
Yeah.
And okay, that's, I mean, you got to grow somehow. But the flip side of that is that it puts a lot more fucking pressure on women because now not only do we have to be gorgeous and fuckable, but we also have to work like a man. So now we have double the expectations, but men don't have any more expectations. The peak contradictory messages for women was in
Yeah.
the 80s, I felt like. Maybe even if women weren't calling themselves feminists, they were like, well, of course women should be able to work outside the home and yeah, we should be able to have sex before we're married and all of these things that, are like basic human rights that
Hmm.
men enjoy. Yeah, as women, we should be able to enjoy those too. But at the same time, these are people that grew up with the mom is supposed to, whether this was like actually true or not, these are all of the messages they got from their culture growing up, is that the mom stays home and takes care of the kids, and you have two kids, and the dad works, and he's pretty distant. If you're lucky, he'll play with you on Saturday. So you got those messages growing up. But then later, women are like, this is like not for us. Like the majority of women were not yet questioning the beauty standards that were being put upon them.
Right.
So even if they were a feminist, they still put a very strong emphasis on being attractive according to the standards of our culture. And at the same time, they're also now supposed to act like a man at work,
Mm-hmm.
and you're supposed to be a mom, and you're supposed to be really hot, and you're supposed to be a housewife, but you're also supposed to be a working woman.
Yeah.
And all of that really, I felt like, kind of like crashed into each other in the 80s. Movies like this, I feel like, are part of the problem, even though I think probably the people making it thought they were being like, progressive.
Mm-hmm.
But really what they're telling girls is that you have to be hot. The only reason Alex ever got in to this dance audition at the school at the end of the movie is because Nick, her boss turned boyfriend, got her the audition because he's like on the board or whatever. I don't really care about that. I mean, whatever, people do stuff like that all the time. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to blame you for like taking an opportunity that's presented to you. So that's not here or there. It's just that all that this movie really told me is that I need to, as a little girl, is that I need to be hot, and
Mm-hmm.
then a guy will save me.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I scream and kick and fight and resist, that just makes me hotter. It's like Taming of the Shrew.
Uh-huh.
I mean, really, this movie is kind of like Taming of the Shrew meets Saturday
My
Night
Fair Lady.
Fever. Oh yeah, My Fair Lady. Yeah,
Yeah, and Saturday Night Fever.
yeah.
Okay. I feel like I must just be again in like a very sentimental mood today because
Hmm.
these things weren't bothering me
Oh,
really much at all. I definitely feel like, nepotism definitely happens. It's not fair. It excludes a lot of people who never had a chance and like different socioeconomics
hmm,
and things like that.
hmm,
But in this movie, Alex was from like a socioeconomic class that wouldn't really have the opportunity to go to this repertory dance school because
yeah.
all of the people, when she does go, before she even meets Nick or gets involved with him at all, she goes to apply and then she hears the woman saying, to fill out this application, put every dance school you've been to, any repertory you've been part of, any company you've toured with. And it's like, it's this huge thing that you're
Yeah.
supposed to list all the training that you've had. And when she comes in, they all look at her because she's wearing like her welding boots and she looks dirty from work.
Hmm.
And there's like, oh my God, who is this
Yeah.
piece of
They're
working
all
class
rude.
trash that's come
Yeah.
in? And so she gets intimidated and she leaves, and that made me sad.
Mm.
But so you can see that there's no way she would
Hmm.
have gotten an audition because auditions are based on invitation. And
Hmm.
reading her application, she had nothing to put on it, like literally
No,
nothing.
literally
Reading
nothing.
books and watching ballet on TV isn't going to get you that audition.
Mm-mm.
And so he just helped her overcome a boundary that was put on her by her like
Hmm.
lack of funds and lack of social support.
Totally.
So I'm okay with it because then, like he said, she still had to do well at the audition in order to get beyond that. So
He
it's
just
really
got
up to
her the
her from
gift.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. See, I'm saying all this stuff, and that's like a more general, like, what are you getting from this movie? But
Yeah, yeah.
the actual, like, me in the moment of watching the movie, when she finds out that he got her the audition and
Hmm.
she got mad, I was like, oh, come on, girl. Like, get over yourself. Just take the fucking audition. Like,
Yeah.
let someone help you. Like, so
Yeah.
I was actually frustrated with her
Hmm.
that she didn't just like immediately be like, you know what? I'm going to do it because this is an opportunity. And how the hell else was I supposed to get it? So
Exactly.
the movie makers, it's like they could be open enough to see a young woman doing it for herself and wanting to be independent and a fully like realized individual. But at the same time, they can't imagine her so independent that she couldn't do any of this stuff without a man. The contradictions of this movie being
Yeah.
like the contradictions of the 80s for women. That's just because that's where people that were making this movie were at in their own heads. Like, you know, these movies we're watching, they're a reflection of like people trying to work out like what are the cultural norms and what's the vision we want to have for the way people are together versus what do we consider to be no longer acceptable, you
Mhm.
know, and people look to movies and TV for that information. I mean, that's just how it is now. I don't really know who Alex is outside of her relationship to Nick. Like, you think you're gonna know because you like see her by herself,
Mhm.
but then everything becomes her reacting to what Nick's doing. And it really kind of ceases to be about her in a way.
Okay, I just have to say that I was upset that there was such a big age difference because aside from that, I felt like their relationship was pretty fun and Nick was like
Mm-hmm.
pretty supportive of her. He handled her outbursts pretty
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, he's got the maturity of a 36-year-old dealing with an 18-year-old girl who
Mm-hmm.
has basically raised herself. So honestly, I think she did pretty well for what she's working with
Mm-hmm.
too, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like at the end, she did her big dance, and when she came running outside after her audition, it was like a fall day and leaves were blowing, and she looked so excited. And I just had this feeling of like happiness for her and
Mm-hmm.
accomplishment, and thinking of like days when I had a really big thing to do, or like I took a really big exam that I've been studying for like a year, and then you just come outside into the sunlight and you're like, I've done it, and you just have that like great feeling of like you've worked so hard for it and it's been terrible and you were really scared the whole time, but then it's over and you just burst out into the day and you're like
Mm-hmm.
you feel so free and light, and it's like at that point you don't even care exactly what happens, you're just so happy that you've actually completed the task that you've been working up to.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like really felt that when she burst out and was running
Mm-hmm.
with the leaves blowing behind her, and
Mm-hmm.
then Nick was waiting for her with her dog, and I just thought it was really sweet. And I got like teary eyed, and he like picked her up and
Mm-hmm.
spun her around. And he gave her flowers, which was like when she went to the dance with Hannah before, when they went to the ballet at the end, then they gave flowers to the principal dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then she asked Hannah at the end, like, does the main dancer always get flowers?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yes. And then she said, how does that feel? And then Hannah said, you tell me someday. Because Hannah
Mm-hmm.
always had faith that she would be able to do it. So then when Nick gave her the flowers at the end, I was like, she's the main dancer. Like she made it. Like she's going to do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like emotional about it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what's the matter with me? It like got to me.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love getting emotional
Yeah.
about in movies.
I just
You
felt
know?
silly getting like emotional over Flashdance, but it was doing it for me. I felt like it was really sweet at the end.
Mm-hmm. No, I really love that ending. I actually wouldn't even have a problem with their age, the age thing or the relationship dynamic they have if he wasn't her boss.
Yeah.
But that is like, why do we need him to also be her boss?
It's true. Why do we need that? Why couldn't he just be a coworker?
He has to be a fancy guy because he needs to have power and money and influence.
Right.
But he could be somebody that goes to the bar
Mm-hmm.
and like that's all you need. And then he like has a job doing something fancy. But
Yeah,
we
why does
know
he have to
he's
be her
like,
boss?
yeah, I mean, I just feel like that makes the relationship feel like, okay, well, the power dynamic is off on multiple levels and not just the age difference,
True.
which is like just unsettling. And I always wonder with these movies, like, how are women responding to this relationship between the two of them. Were they just like, oh, this is romantic and he's supporting her dream? And I wish I had a guy that would support my dreams, because that's the dream.
The dream.
Is that somebody who supports your dreams.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Why did they have to add that extra layer of him actually being her boss? He could have just been a patron at the club that was wealthy, like you said.
Well, okay, here's the thing. We need to get Nick's the love interest. We need to get Nick and Alex together as much as possible. We'll make him the boss. And then we can make a joke about how he's going to fire her. But also, that plot point worked as a device to show how independent Alex is and how she's not a gold digger. I've never been sexually harassed in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. I had this boss when I was in college. I had this boss for a while. And I was really attracted to him. And I guess I was probably 20.
Uh-huh.
And he was probably like 32 or so. And I was super duper attracted to him. And I would like do like the subtle flirting, because I didn't want to push any lines because he was my boss. Yeah. So I wasn't going to be like outwardly flirty with him, but I would like be subtly flirty with him. And I could tell he was attracted to me.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did he draw the line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was real. I mean, I could almost see that like wall of like, and then every once in a while, like if we had to, because usually he would just come and check in on me and then like take the money out of the register or whatever, because we worked in the mall. So
where did you work in the mall?
Oh, I worked at a Sterling Silver cart.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You worked at a cart?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was really fun, actually. But so he would like come in, but sometimes we like if we had to polish everything or something together.
Stare at each other while you feverishly polished silver.
Yeah. I feel like if he had reciprocated my flirtations and if he had hit on me, like I probably would have dated him. And I think I probably would have felt pretty shitty about it later.
Oh, why?
Because when I think about him hitting on me now, me as a 20-year-old,
yeah,
it really grosses me out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so fucking happy he didn't hit on me. Yeah. I'm so happy he kept that boundary with me.
What a great guy.
Because I've actually had a lot of men keep boundaries with me, proper adult male boundaries with me as a teenager and young adult in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. Even though some of those guys I was attracted to, and I feel like I might have dated them, you know, because I was like, oh, I'm 22 or I'm 20 or whatever.
Right.
I thought I was very mature, but I wasn't.
No, I know. I think you're right. It's very like situation dependent. And obviously Alex was into it and they did seem to have a good relationship where he was supportive of her. But in 10 years, when she's 30 and she looks back and is like, wait a minute, what? He was 36 and I was 18.
Yeah.
What was he thinking? And he was my boss. What the heck? Then, yeah, in retrospect, I'm sure she would be like, this was very questionable. But at the time, it seems okay.
Yeah, it does. That's why there's like laws about teenagers. Because people finally figured out, wait, that seemed okay, but actually it wasn't. And it fucked me up really bad. And I was 14 and I was having sex with a 25-year-old.
Oh my God.
Like, that was not okay. I did not do that. I'm not talking about
No.
I'm just saying, you know, like, that's why we have laws about not having sex with teenagers.
It's true. I know. I mean, I just don't know why they had to make it this way. If their age difference wasn't so great and he wasn't her boss, the relationship would have been really nice.
It
It
would have
didn't
been
have to be
sweet.
that way.
No.
But I just don't understand, why did they have to make it such a difference in the age? Like, why did he have to be 36 and she was 18? Why did he have to be her boss? Because it could have been so good without that.
Mm-hmm.
And why did they add those elements in there?
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with the 80s maximalism movie scenario is you throw as much conflict as possible against a wall and you see what sticks. And I feel like they're just like, well, it's not enough that he's twice her age. It's not enough that she doesn't have any education. It's not enough that, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not enough that the odds are stacked against her. And it's not enough that she wears muddy shoes to the dance hall.
Mm-hmm.
He also has to be her boss. Like,
yeah. It's true. That's what it seems like. You're right.
balls to the wall conflict. Pass me that spoon.
Mm-hmm. But as you're mentioning, though, like the 80s excess and all of that, there really aren't any drugs or really any drinking or excess partying or anything like that in this movie. So it's kind of rare in that regard. Like, even in the strip club, there's some beer.
Mm-hmm.
She smokes, like, at the end when she's really frustrated, she smokes a few cigarettes. And that's about it.
Oh, you know what grossed me out? Whenever Alex was smoking a cigarette and Nick said, are you even old enough to smoke?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ew.
Okay.
This is the woman you're having sex with, and you're asking her if she's old enough to smoke?
Yeah. So that sounds, yeah, that makes it like really drives the point home of the age difference and that she's really just a child and that she just turned old enough to buy cigarettes like that year. But it was during her tantrum of how she wasn't going to go to the audition because he got it for her. And so I think he was saying, like, you're being a baby. And that's how he was making that point. But you're right. It just made it seem even grosser that he's pointing that out, but he is still having sex with her.
I mean, it would have like the point would have hit home okay if she was like 25 and he had said that, because then it would have, if she was like 25 and he had been like, are you even old enough to smoke, it would be like, you're being a baby right now.
Yeah.
But she's literally a baby and barely old enough to smoke, so it like doesn't land.
Yeah.
It only lands as Nick being a fucking creep. Whenever Nick and Alex are in the restaurant and she's eating her lobster sexy, and then Nick's ex-wife comes over and they have like a verbal cat fight, quote unquote.
Yes.
I say that because that's what the producers would call. And I'm like, here's another fantasy of two women fighting over you in a restaurant, in a fancy restaurant. I was just like, it's like completely unnecessary. See, again, just more added drama for no reason. Like, it didn't add anything to the storyline, except that it made Alex seem kind of unhinged. As far as scenes I remember as a little kid, I actually, that scene of her putting her foot in Nick's groin at the restaurant really stuck with me. And I thought, I will not ever do that.
Okay. I thought you might go the other direction with it. Of like, I'm going to do this as soon as I get a date. No. Okay. I don't think I've ever like played footsie with someone's crotch. Not that I remember.
That was a big thing in the 80s.
There's so much footsie going on.
Yeah.
Like under the table crotch stuff going on in the 80s. I don't know.
I thought that's like how people had affairs.
Yeah. I definitely, like, when I first started going out on like actual dates where you went to dinner, I was definitely expecting more like feet action. I wore a lot of skirts just so I could like make it accessible. But nothing ever happened. It was so funny when they shot it like from above where you could see just her foot like going up into his crotch and from like an overhead view. I just laughed out loud.
There's some really like inspiring, powerful moments
Mm-hmm.
in this movie.
And the Steel Town Girl song,
Yeah.
like then I was like, oh my God, yeah.
Do you know that song was actually written for another movie that wasn't made called Maniac?
Are you kidding me?
That was about a serial killer, and they changed the lyrics.
You're joking.
No, I'm not. I don't know.
On this podcast, how do you know so much?
No. This was on a Mental Floss article I read. It was like yeah, it was like like things you didn't know about Flashdance or whatever.
Yes.
And because I was looking for a topic for the after show, and I was like, oh, I'll read this.
Okay.
But I'm not going to tell you what the lyrics used to be because they were really disturbing.
I bet.
And there was animal violence in the lyrics.
God.
So I'm just not even going to. If you want to know, look it up. But I'm warning you, it's not like super graphic, but it was enough to make me not want to hear what the lyrics were. But I just thought that was interesting. It's like they completely changed the song.
Tune the same, just the lyrics were different.
Yeah, and not all the lyrics.
Imagine
a lot of the lyrics were just changed, like from he to she.
Yeah, they're like, talking about it can cut you like a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
And some other lines. I was like, this is kind of weird, like about burning stuff, and I don't know. Yeah. Now I can see it.
Yeah. I think they just like changed it because I re-listened to it and I was like, oh yeah, I could totally see how they only changed like some of the key
I have
lyrics.
to look it up. So it was He's a Maniac, and there was like an upbeat dance type song about a serial killer. What?
Yeah.
Is there a recorded version of it anywhere?
I don't know.
That would be amazing to hear.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I love your like background trivia that you have.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I'll do that more.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I guess we should wrap this up.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to say is that at some points in the movie, I was pretty convinced that Jennifer Beals was actually just Ralph Macchio in drag. Take a look at some scenes and tell me if you can't see it.
I totally get that.
Yeah. It was blowing my mind. That was my main takeaway from rewatching it.
So all those Teamsters actually just had a hard-on for the Karate Kid. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Oh. So I have a quote from Richie that sums up the 80s for me.
Nice. What is it?
This place is so small, you have to go outside to change your mind. That's my sums up the 80s.
Like his whole routine was all like anti-Polish jokes. That was like huge in the 80s with Polak jokes.
Yeah,
do you remember that?
I do remember that.
So that's like politically incorrect to Polish people. But that was like a huge thing. And that's basically the only jokes he told.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. That's something to look into.
Started or what it's based on, but it was definitely a thing.
I don't know. What's our question?
I know. Have you ever dated your boss?
Ooh.
And did you want to?
Yeah. Did you feel pressure to do it? How did you feel later after the relationship was over? Or is it 20 years later and you're married? So, I mean, like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Did you get a promotion or did you get fired? Let us know. Tell us about it at coverhouspodcast@gmail.com.
Yes. We are going to do our after show now, which you can find on Patreon at patreon.com/coveryoureyes.
Okay, see you next Tuesday. Bye.
Bye. know about you, but I am getting flutters of romance like hives.